Right up to the microphone we go. Hello and welcome back as the journey powers forward. We're moving at a good clip, half in the water, half in the sky. I know not what's happening. I am so glad to see you again. Welcome back. Our triumphant music on our ship in the sky, traveling through the clouds. Maybe it's the rain where we see the water. My name's Adrian Pocobelli, Artist Journal, October 18th, 2024, broadcasting from the inner half of the nervous system. And here we are. Wonderful Japanese artists, the third time in 4 shows. A rare physical starting the show. I just love this piece. And you've seen probably this artist before. I've shown it on the show many times, work by this artist. I don't remember this piece. I'm not sure if it's new or not. It may have been around. It was posted on October 16th. Got a real nice reception here too. 139 retweets, 40,000 views, and probably counting. So very cool piece here. And again, Ochiai Shohei is the artist out of Tokyo. Very interesting. And you may remember the PlayStation, a lot of McDonald's. A very youthful subject matter is one of the things I want to mention here. This is, again, it's got a pop feeling, right? But, it's tempted, is this neo-pop? Is that what you would call it? It is using, similar to what I was describing with Gozo last show. Remember I was saying, if you watched it, that Gozo, would it have been possible to make Gozo's image 5 years ago? From just even a technological point of view. And I kind of think the same thing here, but from a different perspective. From a content point of view, this is an inherently more youthful image, which I think is significant in the sense that as we look at the contemporary art scene and what I'm arguing, and it's to generalize, but a kind of tiredness that's going on. Again, now you're seeing some contemporary art influencers talk about the new Tom Wesselman show, right? The pop artist. And it's like, okay, like nothing new here. Okay, now we're going to, value Tom Wesselman. Well, I kind of already really like Tom Wesselman. And so I guess there's a big show in Paris. Art Basel Paris is there. I think it's in Paris. Maybe it's London. I can't remember. So within that context, it's very fun to have some youth, something fresh, right? Again, one of these great Japanese artists, interestingly, just catching the eye. And what do we have? We have Super Mario World. Kind of looks like, if I had to guess, from the 90s, it is a package. Right? And that is significant too. I kind of sometimes call it an unrecognized canon. Lego space Lego boxes from the 1980s, trading cards up until about 1991, 92, maybe 93. Gorgeous design. I don't know if they started using Photoshop in the 90s, but all of a sudden I lost interest almost immediately. Interestingly, comics at around the same time kind of lost their mojo. I don't know if it was like the corporatization of comic books and, because Marvel especially went through a lot of corporate takeovers and it didn't work well, I would argue, from my personal perspective here. And I wonder if that's what also happened to Topps. I don't know. I think Michael Eisner is running Topps now for the last few years, who ran Disney. And recognized Topps as a major brand, interestingly, and has actually incorporated a very interesting idea that I think we should consider. Actually, I've considered it, at least, is Topps Now. And, maybe, mental note, maybe on a future show when we have more time, when it's not haircut day, like it is today, and I actually need to leave, it can't be a long show today, wonderfully. Topps Now, where you get an email or you go to their website and it's like, okay, this is available for 24 hours in the edition. It's like an open edition. And however many we get in 24 hours, however many orders we get, we send out, and that is the amount of the edition. The image was taken that day at a baseball game. Very cool, right? And so, but there's a physical. And I wonder if it's here. Wildly enough, this has been on my shelf since I moved here over a year ago. This is what I speak. Yeah, look at this. So look at the packaging. right? So not to go on too much of a tangent here. Now, how can I not? And there. Look at this. And what is it? This is like an art card. I forgot about this. Look at how cool this is. Let me see if I can. I mean, you see why I bought it. Ricky Henderson. And unfortunately not signed. Original card, number 294. Project 2020. This is 4.5 years old. Gorgeous. How cool is that? Again, and look at this casing and everything. So the mind, it gets tempting to think about what's possible. Indeed. And you put, make sure you have your great packaging, as Wok does, right? All sorts of possibilities here. So anyway, but you see, it shows that there's a market for it if you're excited about it. That was the first trading card I probably bought that I was excited to buy. Sometimes on vacation, I'll buy trading cards if I'm just around it and it's at the confectionery or 7-Eleven, just out of fun. But usually I'm kind of disappointed. That was exciting, as you see. So all to say, so the artist here, Ochiai Shohei. And this very interesting combination of what looks like graphite and paint or marker. Again, you look up here, see the side? Kind of looks like marker, doesn't it? Very nice work. And just from a illustration point of view, interesting distortion. Like takes a familiar object, that we all know, Mario Brothers, that we often have a emotional attachment to. For many of us. Again, it makes it generational, so to speak, and distorts it, but consistently across, almost like there's a jaggedness to the image, and also part of this artist's repertoire, stylistic repertoire, is the perspective being off, or just manually done. As you see here, not matching exactly with here, and definitely not matching with the bottom here. This kind of distorted perspective, as you see down here. Kind of a signature thing, and of course, Nintendo and the Japanese version of the game. So there's something kind of generational about this. This isn't your, mom and dad's pop art, so to speak. This is a different, vibe, so to speak. Back to that vibe word. And look at the response. A lot of enthusiasm out there. I find this, being able to see the views on X and even the likes on Instagram for some of these artists, I find very, very interesting from just a big picture view of the art and society. Here's their X profile, as you see, all sorts of cool things going on here. There's trading cards, hilariously. Color variations tap this image. So not sure what this is, but you see there's a little version of the Mario there. I think I brought this up. Right, so as you see, so maybe this is a whole bunch of other works. As you see, again, always this kind of distorted perspective. Love the Filet-O-Fish. Again, the McDonald's. Even the 1968, but then 2006. Corona, Big Mac. So some of it inherently modern. I guess the fries could have been from a while ago. That one, Nintendo Game Boy. Contemporary digital pop, which makes you think, like the idea of pop, similar to surrealism, perhaps, is just like there's neo-surrealism, you could say there's neo-pop. There's something kind of almost, I want to say, timeless about what they're doing. Of course, surrealism being much more psychological and kind of fantastic, shall we say, whereas pop being very much the world that we live in and consumer product oriented, shall we say. There seems to be something timeless about it. I think this is the artist here. Remember the last show, there was the comment about how, not all artists are tortured. This guy, maybe he's tortured, but he doesn't look tortured at all. He looks like quite a happy guy. I'm pretty sure it is the guy on the right. And just a beautiful work there. And again, look at the subject matter here. Just probably painting things that he finds that he visually loves, right? Like this comics and this really interesting perspective here and the lines and everything. So turning that, and you see up here. So paint being applied here with what looks like graphite. Interesting combination. Nice contrast between kind of multi-medium here. And you see here the amount of work that goes in, like, having the names of each color here, like not slacking there and just taking any old color, interestingly. Here's the Instagram, and here again is that page, and so you just, and look at this. Again, back to the distorted perspective here. Just very, very cool. And I think worked maybe with Adidas, if I'm not mistaken. Look at this. Again, inherently modern, youthful. There's energy here, right? It's fun. It's something that you could also bring, and look at all 1,600 likes. I mean, that's a lot for Instagram. And this is something you could show at a high school today, and the kids are going to love it, right? And there's something to be said for that, right? Even like to an elementary school, right? Same here. So isn't youthful art? Isn't that great? So thrilled to start there with Ochiai, and forgive me, Ochiai Shohei. I need to work on my Japanese. Someone told me Japanese isn't that hard. It was actually a friend that speaks Japanese who visited Berlin from Canada. And he knew some Japanese. I guess he lived there. Anyways, let's continue. Louis JPD, thank you for the post here. An artist journal work, kind of loosely based on Rauschenberg. Interesting. I almost feel like, I was going to say that this work is in Berlin. There's a different work in Berlin. A good vibe, self-referential piece that celebrates the joy of appearing on Artist Journal in the framework of a digital homage to neo-dadaist Robert Rauschenberg. Interesting. That does ring a bell. That it's interesting. Now, neo-dadaist, and I don't want to go too long here because we know how these shows bubble out, and there is a hard deadline here. But it is interesting because Rauschenberg liked chance, right? And the dadaists seem to like randomness. Then you had Surrealism with automatism, where they were just saying the first words that came out of their head and using that as a kind of record, so to speak, a kind of, as I call it, a transcription of the nervous system, so to speak. That's one kind of way of looking at it. So all to say, so very interesting. So Woke Up on YouTube is the work, and let's see, so, and incorporating that, and there is the work. And I think I brought this up. So awesome. So thank you, Louis. I think I actually have this on object here. Woke up on YouTube. Waking up is hard to do. So thank you for that. And there you see almost this Rauschenberg-esque YouTube logos switching around. Just awesome. Thank you, Louis. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend here. Last show, thank you for the comments and likes here. Just speed through it here. Retro Manny, I never understood why people would upload themselves playing games to YouTube. But yeah, so referring to me watching Ultima 4 on YouTube. But over the years, I've realized what a treasure trove of classics it has become. Yeah, it's a whole kind of cottage industry, I think you'd call it. Totally with you on not wanting to play games I grew up with, but rather revisit them just to enjoy them as a form of art, no different from cinema in some cases. Indeed. Again, it's back to this idea, it's the visual impact of these games over the gameplay that I'd argue is the legacy of those games, interestingly. Like, again, Ultima 4 is pretty sophisticated at the time, kind of RPG, but from do I want to spend my time to, figure out how to play that game again and try and win and spend 100 hours or maybe more? I never won that game, and I probably spent 100 hours on it. But why do I go back to it now? Yeah, it's the visuals. It's spectacular. It's this moving tableau that you kind of move through it, and it's just a beautiful art of this tile art, and a true innovator. I can't remember his actual name, Richard something, but who Lord British is. So all to say, yeah, and I don't think it's just Ultima 4 to your point here. Anyway, another great show, Adrian. Amazing pieces showcase from Nicholas Dietrich. Can't wait to see that one finish. This surreal, almost like this Decurico of pixel art. Also appreciate you showing mine and Limbo's work next to each other. My absolute pleasure. I think I might have a Limbo at the back of the show there, just of the big eye. Just really cool work posted by Limbo. Thank you for the comment, Manny. Skamra, great show. I loved your discussion of Gozo's work. I've read Freud, but I haven't really studied the surrealists, especially the painters. The decontextualizing and juxtaposition in surrealist painting can be visually interesting, but I have a hard time connecting to it on an emotional level. Very interesting. It's almost like they were trying to... I'm not sure if that was the goal, but maybe partly. Let's go back to this in a second. Let's finish your comment and kind of dig a little deeper here. Surrealist films and surrealist poems are easier for me, as the progression through time of surrealist work brings them to life for me. I really love Gozo's work, especially the stable diffusion pieces, as you might imagine. Of course, you guys could be in the same show, but I didn't really know how to incorporate the other style of work. I have a much better understanding of what Gozo is doing now. In terms of the other works, and again, this kind of Freudianism, right, this latent narrative, to be blunt about it, as Ballard put it, sex continues to be our main preoccupation. And that is kind of a Freudian, way of looking at the world. And so, so back to the surrealist painting, and what it means, and how should I read these paintings is kind of another way of putting it. And I just mentioned a couple of things. Of course, J.G. Ballard, the great, I would say explainer, interpreter, almost reinterpreting a little bit of surrealism, kind of capping off what I'd call classic, and some others as well, call classic surrealism. And what makes it classic surrealism? I would argue it is the Freudianism. And what is the Freudianism? Back to our earlier comment about our main preoccupation, right? So, as he said in a late article, I think 2004, 5, 6 in The Guardian, when he'd write these great articles, how he saw, the surrealist paintings at their best were on par with discoveries that were made in, say, quantum mechanics. Like, that's quite a provocative statement. How dare he, right? But it's an interesting point, and to a certain degree, there is a kind of, remember De Chirico, we were just mentioning him, and a proto-surrealist and inspired Max Ernst, walked by De Chirico painting, saw it, I think, in a storefront in Paris, and was like, changed the course of his life. A metaphysical painter, right? And so we put that in mind. And so what is being discovered here is another way of kind of framing this kind of difficult question, as I do it in real time here, with not a ton of time to spare. Let's take this angle. More Ballard. When, as he put it, when the central nervous system, you get the impression of, say, as he put it, the angle between two walls, and the message we might think on a conscious level, as he put it, might have a very different message than by the time it reaches kind of the central nervous system, unconscious, the deep psyche, for lack of a better term. The iceberg in the water, which is the, as Freud put it, I think it was Freud, and the consciousness is a little bit peeking out, and then the big part, that's the unconscious in a Freudian kind of model of the world. And so the question being, in a sense, and what Ballard and the Surrealists and Freud are suggesting, is that really A equals B. And you can ask, if you kind of buy into this idea, that a cigar is not just a cigar, with this main preoccupation that we have, even you could argue, that's probably one of the ways you can read the Magritte. There's many ways to read the Ceci n'est pas un pipe. There are many ways to read that, but one of the ways you can read it is a cigar is not just a cigar, as they say in kind of classic Freudian line, or at least line referring to Freud. So it's this, back to this idea, finally, of the way, as Dali said, to give another angle on this, in The Unspeakable Confessions of Salvador Dali. If you want to understand my paintings, as he said very directly, in capital letters, decode, 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 and I don't remember if he said it 3 times or 5 times, okay? Decode, decode, decode. So it's very, you always got to kind of keep in mind this kind of Freudianism, I would argue, for, or the at least psychological art, which is trying to get at a reality, and final point on this, And as we learn, again, so final point on this, just to tie the bow, and then we got to run. So Ballard talking about Dali. In the early essays, eroticize and quantify. That's how he described what Dali was doing. He's eroticizing, again, back to Freudianism, and quantifying. He's kind of turning this impulse, this preoccupation, into physical form. And then it's kind of like, it's soft, it's hard, it's curvilinear, it's rectilinear, and then all of these kind of elements, it's kind of like a new kind of metaphysic. One could argue that is kind of based on, again, decoding. And finally, what is Ballard doing? What does Ballard say? What does eroticize? What does he turn that into? In the introduction to Crash, eroticize and quantify. What is that turned into? Freud's classic distinction between the manifest and the latent contents of the inner world of the psyche need now be applied to the external world of so-called reality. What does that mean? Treat the world, as he often put it in late interviews, as he treats the world as a solidified dream. And that what the dream work in Freud, as I've mentioned here many times, is what is the task of the analyst? You have your dream. You don't know what it means. It's a bunch of random things. That is the manifest or surface content of the dream. You bring it to the analyst, and the task of the analyst is to read the manifest content of your dream to understand what's actually going on, the underlying content of the dream, the reality. It's back to an appearance reality thing. And Freud was very literary, as many of the surrealists were. They're very literary. Breton was a writer. You could argue it was more of the original impulse was a writing impulse, and then, Breton starts adding, and by the way, there's some artists too in the first Surrealist Manifesto. I don't even know if that's the edited version 2 of the first Surrealist Manifesto. So all to say is, so there is kind of a task of getting towards a kind of truth, not necessarily the truth, but a kind of truth. And in that sense, Ballard would call these discoveries, right? So I don't know if that helps you with surrealist painting, but I hope it does. Like, there is kind of a mission, so to speak. It's not just random stuff. And, Ernst was very, I think clear in Beyond Painting, if memory serves, that, you're not just looking for any two objects, you're looking for a flash, I believe is the word he called, of inspiration when you're putting two objects together in a new context, right? As you beautifully put it here, decontextualizing and juxtaposition. So I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, by all means, ironically, finally on this point, the films, I can't do it. It's like tedious, and the poems too. Magnetic Fields, and I think it's Nadia by Breton, the novel. It's almost like automatism. It's kind of lost on me, whereas, kind of more of a clinical approach to it. I can more enjoy a poetic approach to a very symbolic, and, anyways, let's continue. Thank you very much for the comment. I'm glad you liked that discussion. Summer Blues, great to hear from you. Need to tell it again, I love your show. Awesome to hear from you, Andre. I think we have a work by you. This show, and here also on Twitter, or X. Let's speed through here. Blue Alley, your contributions via all your efforts, Pocobelli, are precious to me. As an artist and member of the groups of artists and art lovers who spontaneously join to wonder at the beauty and incomprehensible dimensions that both art and life encompass. What a beautiful statement. Honored to finally join the discussion here on Artist Journal with my first community post. Merci infiniment. Well, grand merci. Bleu. Should I call you Bleu, Ellie? Great to hear from you, and what a wonderful thing to say. Wonderful to have you. Darbles, this is really cool. Great to have you, and glad to hear. And was also asking about Ethereum. Do I talk about art journals on Ethereum? This is a multi-chain show, and so there are Ethereum works. It's not meant to be like a Tezos a specific show. It just kind of ends up that way. For whatever reason of my feeds and me I'm just kind of, again, this is a journal. not a news program. And so I'm just kind of taking whatever looks good. It's kind of like putting, as I have mentioned in the past, my hand out in a waterfall. And then kind of whatever's there, and then just kind of making a DJ mix out of it, visual DJ here. That's basically what I'm doing, and talking you through my visual DJ mix. So definitely Ethereum, no problem with that. So thank you for the comment. Amir Music, one of the dopest art journals on the internet. Thank you. Our Milk, another great release, lots of strong works and artists. Cool. The more often I watch your show, the more I see my works. Yes, it works out that way. I even think I'm beginning to understand something about contemporary art, probably because I am turbo swolado. Whatever that means. Thank you, Our Milk. I think we have a work by you this show, but I'm not positive on that. Awesome to hear from you, and wonderful work. Andre Summer Blues, awesome to hear from you. Thank you for the comment. Retro Manny, it's time for a coffee break when Artist Journal drops, and one for you too. I appreciate that. I could almost use another. I'll get it at the hairdresser there. They love to give coffee. OX Bench, awesome to hear from OX Bench. Must admit, I've missed a few of your shows now, Adrian, but so glad to see you're still powering through. Inspiring, thank you. And I'm working on, I think Monday I'm going to take another crack at making the show shorter for all our sakes here, especially mine. And Jan Lucas, thank you for the comment, and awesome to see you, Bench. Jan Lucas Magone, always got time for Artist Journal. Thank you. Gozo, we heard from Gozo. Awesome. Thanks, Pocobelli, for opening the program with Backwards, which is this work right here. And the interesting thoughts. What attracts me most about working with Stable Diffusion is the materiality of the shapes and textures I get out of it. Indeed, it seems like the textures are the kind of big showstopper. You see it with Scamra. Maybe with RJ. In these animated collages, part of the animation is created in the classic digital way and part with Stable Diffusion. Interesting. The animation. Interesting. The idea was to create the materiality also in the movement. The image about to collapse. So, very interesting. So, materiality through movement. Very interesting, Gozo. Thank you for the comment. Just awesome to hear from you. And Rorich, always a joy. I love Beavis and Butthead. I thought it was so funny when I was 16. I loved Beavis and Butthead. Uyo66, greatest show. Awesome to hear from you, Uyo, and rad work, by the way. Sachu the Artie, thank you for talking about my piece on Artist Journal anytime. Beautiful. Beautiful work there. Rosacho, thanks for featuring my work. Yes, I made them, but it's an old one so that was that physical. If you remember that from last show. 7 years ago. You might be right. I need to make some more. You should definitely make some more. There's something very original and beautiful about it. And it's good, too, for the digital. It's always good to go back and forth. Neural Frames, thanks for the shout-out, Pocobelli. We love Lejo X's work. And so, glad, yeah, indeed. Awesome to hear from you, Neural Frames. And Lejo X, absolutely. That was a cool work, kind of animated abstract there. It looked like it was part of a bigger series. Obtainer, thank you for the feature. Absolutely, Sonic. Hazruba Waffle, your French is quite good, Monsieur Pocobelli. Well, it's rusty, though. You can hear it. It's like a bit of a struggle. Pour parler français. It wasn't like in grade 12, but maybe a few weeks practice, even a couple of days. And waffles. We can be having a baguette and a cafe in Paris. Kurt Hustle Collective and Hopi, awesome to hear from you. What a wonderful crowd. And here, just quickly looking at the community, Miss number 40, we're going to take a look at this. This is Santiago, the artist formerly known as Santiago, now known as Times, and the Myth. We'll see that later this show. Louis JPD, we saw this work at the start. Thank you for posting. Requiem de la Nuez, thank you for posting. Kind of a wild, kind of surrealist looking painting. Kind of looks like, is it a Boston Dynamics dog? Is it an insect with a head of a woman and guns? Pretty wild painting there. Thank you for posting. Prince Sketch, thank you for posting. Kind of looks like a physical. Artists on the chain, interestingly. So very cool. Chris War, and here's a collaboration with Psychofuturist. And I assume there's some, as you can hear, Chris War, knowing how to make techno, progressive techno, has put out records, great talent there. So collaborating with Psychofuturist, super cool. Thank you for posting. It's Orena, a new beat making room, more cool music. Love these kind of. This one almost looks pixelated. This beautiful kind of synthesizer setup here. What kind of synth is that? That looks like an old, I want to call it Oberheimer or something, not sure. Very cool. Rural Idol, thank you for posting. So last 36 hours, the open edition. If you are a Rural Idol collector, you'll receive a one-of-one GIF in comments. Interesting. One lucky collector will receive a one-of-one GIF. Raman Siarif, Blade of Sin, so kind of a 3D rendering here. Thank you for posting. And Luke 500, thank you for posting this Bitcoin work. This is the chair at my cousin's. And it was hilarious because actually Luke 500, I can easily picture Patrizio, who is the dog here in the other Bitcoin work, sitting on the chair. And I sent that to my cousin. I was like, does Patrizio actually sit on that chair? Because both are from her terrace or patio there. She's like, Patrizio can't get up, but the other dogs do. So hilarious. Thanks for the comment, Luke. Mind Eye, thank you for posting. Kind of looks like an AI 3D work, maybe CGI. AI, indeed it is. Fabricated Enlightenment, very cool. LucasOx, we're going to see this show. Very cool spaceship. We'll check it out later. Skull Takes, no one wins. Art commissions go up for auction on object.com. So thanks for including me among the artists. So cool. So Skull Takes putting out kind of a wild work of the screen. We're going to see more of that shortly. Very cool kind of mixing of mediums here. Layering of mediums. Nifty Trap. Some works here. Not sure if those are paintings or AI. Cool looking work. Very minimal. Psychofuturist, another Zodiac. This is Virgo. Thank you for posting. Pretty rad. And we are through the community. Now, let us go here. Let us bring us to the top here. So there's not too much I want to say here, other than there's a lot more. There continues to be very good vibes at the Art Basel Paris. It might be this roof. People love the location. And I'll just read this first line here. By Katya Kazakina, the art detective. As a student of art history, you feel part of a lineage, Noah Horowitz, Art Basel's CEO, said. Paris is a city that wrote the story of the avant-garde, and we are part of that narrative at Art Basel Paris. Reopening at the Grand Palais in 2024, it will be in history books. So good vibes coming out of Art Basel Paris. And here, just another headline, Greenhouse Effect, Art Basel Paris gets a warm welcome at the Grand Palais. And you see just the wonderful space here. That does have to help. And I think I highlighted it here. Here's the, just quickly, here's Pace Gallery, just to get a sense of the vibes, the visual vibes. Hauser and Wirth at Art Basel Paris. Interesting shadow on the spider there. This is actually what I wanted to highlight on this. Here's another one, Art Basel Paris. And just a little bit more, and then we'll come back up to what I saw here. Just a quick, this guy's rad, Martin Wong. He's at Cave. He had a big show. I think he's passed now. I think San Francisco or New York, not exactly sure. Chinese artist, but Chinese American, really great artist here. I was really glad. That was a great show at Cave Institute here in Berlin last year. Let me see if I can find. There was something I wanted to mention here, which was that it's becoming more about the experiences. Do I have this here? Just very, very quickly here. Herein lies at least one takeaway. There is a noted desire to draw clients to show up in person and stay a while. It echoes what I heard at Sotheby headquarters on Monday, where a group of fresh-eyed executives stood amongst a whole bunch of art. Their expanded location has a flexible layout where they plan to host different events to respond, quote, to the needs of their clients in the 21st century. The auction house is seeking to create more on-site experiences. For buyers, said head of Sotheby's France, Mario Travella, there is, for example, a wine tasting cellar. Again, I would argue that this is like art as lifestyle rather than the deep poetry. And there's a lot of, and the criticism, I would think also you see it. I just was reading an article about it where contemporary artists are criticizing, kind of like the financial side of this. I'm not against the finance in principle. I think it's the beating heart of the art market and always has been in large degree. If you're not getting paid to make your work, where's your incentive, and why? The world is saying it doesn't need it ultimately. So I'm all for the financial side, but the fact that they want experiences, and then there's a wine tasting cellar, It says that one way of reading it is saying that the art isn't enough. There's probably a lot of ways to read it. No, they're just trying to expand their business and et cetera. But I would argue that's one of the takeaways. So very quickly here. So Just Stop Oil and Youth Demand replied to the museums. We saw the letter yesterday, right? And here they are. And they want to meet. We don't have time to read the entire thing, but they talk about public interventions in gallery spaces and that the world is in a very dark place. We represent Just Stop Oil and Youth Demand, and they want to meet next week in a public location at the National Gallery. If I was the National Gallery, I would be very worried because I'd say, what kind of stunt are they going to try and pull? We have We have action takers who have risked liberty to call an end to oil and gas. I would love to speak to Dr. Gabriel Finaldi. We'll leave the soup at home. So kind of talking past each other. And I think I have an interpretation of what's going on here. In a sense, so the museum directors come in and say, hey, this is about bringing solace, and I think light are the two words that they used. This is about bringing solace and light to people's lives, and so damaging or attacking these works is not helping your cause. Maybe we're even on the same page, is what they're saying. And so what I see happening here is two different kinds of politics. I would argue Just Stop Oil and Youth Demand, this is kind of what I would be tempted to call kind of more of a left-right kind of politics. Whereas I would argue in the arts, and I've never actually seen it discussed. But sometimes I've commented on it. In a sense, I say, I avoid politics here. It's not the purview of this program. But when you go on a meta level, I'd argue, say, what the Surrealists were doing, even Freud, philosophy in itself, look at Socrates, just to name a few famous examples, say Jesus Christ. That's not left-right politics, right? Like that, you start to get, at least I would say in the arts, it's a different kind of politics. And I would argue it's a meta politics. It's a different discussion. So what I see happening here, and I'm not sure if even the museum directors would agree with me or anything, but, again, I'm watching all this historical videos on conquests, and it's just the endless conquest after conquest after conquest. And you don't know any of these, like 99% of these names you've never heard of and are not even remembered, right? But what do we remember from a culture? It is back to the arts. I mean, there's not much. It's the texts, it's the arts, and the architecture you could put in under the arts, and even writing. It's like the arts, right? It's the images, it's the writing. And what is writing? It's almost making images with text to a certain degree, or at least telling a history, right? So this is, and I think that is the mindset, I suspect, of the directors. Like so that in effect becomes political, because all of a sudden, you could argue Andy Warhol had way more effect on the culture and all this fame and the celebration of celebrity in a certain way, which might have happened in an alternate universe anyway. But that is more impact than whether it was JFK or Richard Nixon. And that's maybe a debatable point, but I just argue they're different strata of politics here. Now I need to speed up here. Final point on this, though, is bringing it back to Socrates and force versus persuasion. This and all these conquests, why are there wars? It's when persuasion breaks down, right? And then you revert to force. And when I see these, hammers being applied here, that looks like, I don't know what you see there, but I see what looks like hammer blows to the glass of this Velázquez. And so when you start to see, or even whether it is soup, it starts to get, when you go into the physical, it starts to become, you start to get out of the civilized, I would argue, and you start to get more into violence. It's kind of the road to violence. It's like one step towards it. It crosses a line. It's no longer about persuasion anymore. Once you go physical, you're changing, and you could argue, well, I'm trying to be both and whatever, fine, but you are starting to change the conversation in fundamental ways that you may not even be, I would argue, that maybe is not even being aware of, that it's starting to get into an uncivilized discussion, and it's not about persuasion anymore, it's about force. So just my 2 cents on that. So why I don't think it helps the cause, as the museum directors, I'd argue, point out. So all to say, here's the final lines here. There is a rich history of protests in public gallery spaces. We are proud to be part of that heritage. And again, I mean, I'd like to hear the examples. Are they thinking the Guerrilla Girls? Because the Guerrilla Girls used persuasion. As far as I understand, they weren't, like they did it through artworks, right? That's persuasion. You know who wanted to use force? Were the futurists. They glorified violence. They wanted to burn the Mona Lisa, right? We should bring that up. Marinetti, right? And look at what political movement are the futurists affiliated with. So just, again, not all protest is the same, is what I'd put. We're proud to be part of that heritage. From the suffragettes who slashed pictures in the National Gallery to anti-Sackler protests. I guess here are your examples. To anti-Sackler protests at the Guggenheim in New York. And I think, and maybe you've thought this too, I wonder if there's a little bit of art world sort of, like, maybe there's a desire to be a part, like they see themselves as performance artists, I imagine. I suspect. Let's continue. Will you use your immense power to safeguard your collections and the public who will enjoy them? So turning the question, are you going to protect your work? Let's work together. We look forward to hearing from you. Courage calls. So interesting. The funny guys. So this is pretty funny, actually. 68 Tezos used to equal $458. Now it's probably worth 50. So the vicissitudes, to quote Freud, of the crypto market coins, objects' historical Tezos prices is triggering an entire community's PSD. It's very useful, though, isn't it? So very interesting. Greg Nikshumika, what to do when you're overbid? I guess you make your own, to mint or not to mint. That is the question, Uncertain Gaze. I would probably do this privately because it's harder to say no in public. It's beautiful, though. Like, it's a great remix that Greg did. So Gozo agreeing to it. But I would do this, I think, and I think all intentions are good here, but I would do this privately because it's like, if you say it publicly, then it's just like, well, if I say no, will that be interpreted badly? But at least it was asked. Beautiful remix here. I love how this part is the part of the frame, hilarious. But it does bring up an interesting point, and which I want to come back to in a future show. We got to keep running here. Machine. I don't care if the public posts my art without mentioning me. Everyone knows who made it. So that is, Machine's getting pretty darn popular out there. And so I think this is an interesting kind of lesson in what is happening, what happens is, so all of a sudden, public posting my art without mentioning me. And the sad thing is probably most people know who made it, but not everybody. But, interesting. So interesting thing from Machine to have to deal with. Carborn, artworks on Silk circa 2014. These are great. So, and as you see here, you'll see some pixelation on Silk, Mankind Deleted. Again, every medium transforms differently, as you see here. Silk's pretty fine, so you can get a pretty good pixelation. As you see, a pretty fine rendition. Very cool there. Here's Acid Boy. Fancy a quick studio tour. Let's make it super quick here. Look at that. And I love it, like a real studio. Congrats to Acid Boy, and of course makes paintings, as Acid Boy has shown. And there, look, a nice digital frame, rad. There's Acid Boy, and here in the studio, like, very impressive Acid Boy, the master of psychedelic abstraction, as I love to call him here. Nice light too, fabulous. No hygiene with physicals. Look at this. 1.5 by 3 meters, liquid latex sculpture. So who knew? No Hygiene is making physicals, makes paintings. Look at that. Look at the texture. So pretty cool. We have some works by No Hygiene this episode. And here, look at this artist, Suzanne Treister. Fictional video game stills, Are You Dreaming, 1991 to 1992. So isn't this interesting? Because I was like, oh, does this dismantle my whole second generation of digital art hypothesis, theory? You know, we have this 1991, it's video games. I was like, actually, it kind of fits quite well. Because I'm arguing something changed when you started getting the GUI, graphic user interface, on the Mac, I think it was, where all of a sudden you could paint with a computer. And this, so I'd say, okay, this may be from 1991 or 1992, but that still fits within, because when was the first UI? This is done using, I believe, maybe a Amiga computer. So it was drawn and then it was photographed, as far as I understand. And I brought up some of these works. At first, I thought they were textiles. These are not textiles. These are, as you see, there's a little bit of a curve here. These are photographs of the screen, and credit to Suzanne Treister for getting such great photographs. Still alive, 66. Interesting. So just really interesting art here. And here's the website. There's a ton. I brought up a few. This is artsy. There's a fictional video games. We've seen artists on Tezos do a similar idea with, I think, without being aware of Suzanne Treister. I could be wrong, but I've thought of this, you know, and I didn't know that this person existed back in 1991, 1992. So I find this to be a really interesting, in a sense, bridge. And this is part of the Tate show, is what it says here. And the fact that this is being celebrated here, this gorgeous work of art, in the new Tate Digital Art Show, that tells me that, you know, things are starting to bridge here, and that the thesis that, you know, some of this art could be, you know, like it's hard not to see a lot of the art that we see, you know, you can start to relate it to what's going on here, is what I'm saying. It starts to bridge the gap a little bit. So very, very cool work here. Susan Treister, I think British. And here, so again, photographs of the screen, right? How brilliant of her to photograph the screen. Archival giclée print on Epson, photogloss paper, 16, quite large, interestingly. So, and just gorgeous. Look at that. Quiz. Stunning. Look at how gorgeous that is. Could have started the show with that. Beautiful. Here's more. Yeah. And so, and aesthetically, very second generation. It's aesthetic. It's like, again, it's celebrating the visual aesthetics of video game culture, one could argue here, and doing it in a really beautiful way. Identify the murder weapon. I mean, it looks like a Sabato, doesn't it? I mean, so 1991, 1992, brilliant. Even Sentenced to a Fate Worse Than Death. This is an interesting one with 3D. Beautiful, beautiful work. Here's another one. I mean, I just love these. Look at the pixelation in here, too. Like how it doesn't even overlap perfectly. I mean, really great work. Susan Treister. So here's Harold Cohen, a computer-generated drawing in ink on paper, hand-embellished with color pencil. So we saw this the other day, that someone was using, like, painted themselves or colored themselves. Here's another example of that. And so isn't that interesting? 1974. As we start running through the works here, how much time do we have? Not a ton. Okay, so here's Spiegel's Maskinen. So computer heads, it's on 2 chains, interestingly. Here is the Ethereum chain, and I brought up a few of the works. Here's just one, just for, let that load up. So current bid 0.04, so around 0.03, 0.04, so all on auction here. And here is one of the works. Pretty fabulous. We saw a preview before in the skull turning. Nice and huge pixels. Love the computer, by the way. The rendition of the computer, the whole thing, just rad. And so here are the ones, and we got a few on Tezos. And one has sold, only one. And so you see interesting different markets, like the collectors want the Ethereum, perhaps over the Tezos. Not sure, but it's one of the interesting things you find in doing a multi-chain series like that. Super cool. Cedar Plank, Wise Blood. So a new work, I believe, on Object from Cedar Plank. So more textures here, more kind of web browser type programs. You see all sorts of different, there's a sampled brush, here's a spray brush, all sorts of different textures and everything. Maybe a skeleton, look at the bottom there. Perhaps pasted on, I don't know, some physical. Having too much fun here with a big American flag, celebrating America, Wise Blood. Not exactly sure, and there's like an award. And some more Cedar Planks. So that other one is on Object, and I don't know if it's edition of 3. So we'll see what happens there. Some offers coming in. Here is Histrubal Waffle on Rodeo. A few works, just quickly go through. So another just rad kind of work here. Vampire State Building. And again, it's funny how using all these different browsers, you can totally identify the style, even though it's not always the same software. Isn't that interesting? Huge works here playing again, celebrating, like we see with Yuri J, celebrating these kind of artifacts, so to speak, these errors. So to traditionally would think, oh, I can't use this as digital art because these are the errors. Now they're celebrated. Interestingly, and someone crying with the mouth moving. Here's the Myth with some super interesting works. I thought I saw that these were on chain, which is interesting. These masks are available on Zora using Super App Tool, using Surreal App Tool. So a whole bunch of masks by the Myth, and some were quite poetic. Love that black one. And we have the red one, and so 9 masks by the Myth, and here's one large. And of course, I follow the great Myth out of Buenos Aires. Had the pleasure of meeting the Myth in August. And here is a new profile picture. Yeah, this one's rad. They're all rad. Beautiful work. Also at Argentina, Nev 1914, Colombiana after Botero. And beautiful work here, kind of more minimalistic. Love the spheres here, as we saw with the bikini work too the other day, and these beautifully colored sheets here. Really nice piece. Fernando Botero. Edition of 13, and I think still available. Maybe there's one left if you're lucky. There's 2 left if you run. Yuri J with just posting a work on Twitter, on X. So again, you're seeing all of these interesting artifacts being celebrated here. Very interesting. And you see a bike, and so I think probably a close-up, but not positive, on a work here. And did you see the tire? Oops. As you see me there, do you see the tire here? Look at that. Super cool. Continuing on, Pleasure and Pain. I got to check, actually. I can't be late for my haircut here. Let me just very quickly check. I think it's at 2:45. Calendar. Yes, it's at 2:45. So yes, I have a few minutes. Pleasure and Pain. So here is Michi Asu, picked up by Absurdity. Wild work here. 5-second loop. Here's another one. Gain and Loss. Interesting audio. Totally original artist here. Nice beat. Put out a ton of work. And also Absurdity picking up this work here. How much did that go for? Transferred. So maybe private. Metamorphosis. This is Gloomtube. This is kind of funny. So showing a wheat field that has been tilled, I guess, and then modern foods like candy. Maybe this is like some sort of butterscotch tablet or something. I don't know. And like super artificial candy worm here. Interesting contrast there by Gloomtube. It's called Metamorphosis, selling for 123 Tezos. Nice sale. Another one, Debris. So again, classic Gloomtube, who did the garbage bags the other day, and here is kind of litter, looks like a straw. And then even the rain here, almost looking like a sad face there and everything. Interesting reflection, where you see the reflection on one side and underneath the water on the other. Debris edition of 15, and almost selling out there. Nice work. Here's PP Universal Chevrolet Onyx. Interesting title. So as you see here, interesting take on the patterning in the outlines here. You can see why Yuri J and PP work together. Kind of similar kind of concept as far as the outlines and the textures. Interesting piece here, gradient in the background. And okay, and that is an edition of 5 and selling out. Nice work, Yuri J picking one up. Awesome, or 2. Great, hilarious. Next year, beautiful. So continuing to complexify the gradients here in gorgeous colors. Nice work from Ranixtier, and I think that's on. I want to be able to see the chart. If anybody knows where the charts are, I'm kind of curious to see what happens here. So it's still minting. I assume this is where things can be turned into like meme coins, art coins as they're calling them. Enigmatrix, The Fire Within. So taking, I think, a fairly famous, I don't know if this is Japanese woodcut, but a fairly famous illustration at least seemingly so. And again, doing a different, it seems like every work, there's kind of a slight variation. Here you have different colors of letter. So interesting innovation there. And this was super cool too. I guess it's like a bird. And lots of negative space here. Love this piece here too, from Enigmatrix. Beautiful. Here's Francois Gamma. We'll see if we can make that bigger. Nope. And so more kind of text, using text as art and ASCII. A beautiful piece here from Francois Gamma. Here's Element Lee, Motel, 300 by 300 pixels. And again, playing with the inverse and just 2 colors. So very cool there. Interesting, almost looking, so motel, kind of looks like architectural structure, maybe a palm tree there, very minimal. Dan Kelly, who of course I follow, new short film next week, part of Hellevision's Debt Quest. So this looks interesting. Again, looks like almost like a filming of a screen, as we were seeing with the earlier artist on the Amiga there. I think Susan Terrier, if I remember the name right. Very cool there. Here is Sui Soichi. Romance is Dead by Sui Soichi. Interesting, again, layered effects here, I suspect. Great kind of noise here. And all these great colors, these artifacts that you get, even in the eyes. Cool kind of pixel painting. I almost want to call it a pixel painting. Great work there. That is on Manifest XYZ, or sorry, sealed.art is where that is. Continuing on, here's Cider, with some great textures here, almost figurative. You seem to see a person here, but almost abstract in these wonderful negative space in the margin. Beautiful work there. Here is Tornado Rodriguez, One More Dance. So anew, I don't think we saw this finished. I think we saw the work in progress, because there was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And so just a really nice record store piece. And there's the old compact disc logo. Edition of 11 for 10 Tezos and 5 gone so far. Beautiful work there. Here's Jake Studios, picked up by Gloomtube, Missing. And so interesting piece here. It looks like a static work, a rare static work by Jake Studios. And it looks like the Jake Studios character and guy with a paper bag lifting up the poster. Interesting. The upside down clouds, the target. And back to almost that helicopter we saw before, but that was just fire. Louis Osborne, Grin Cycle. This is brilliant. I don't know if it's new, but this was quite brilliant. By Louis Osborne, British illustrator. Quite brilliant. The happy and sad faces in the washing or the dryer. Brilliant. Summer Blues, The Devourer. So new work by Andre Summer Blues, and this is on Object, edition of 10 and 2 gone so far. There's Rosacio picking one up, and very cool. I'd call that a psychedelic illustration with some great texture in here. As you see, kind of using printing techniques here, or printing tropes, I want to say, in the color. So that rasterization, I believe you'd call that, kind of like a devil figure seemingly. Cool work there. Here's Pamelo Chirone's Scalibrata. So out of Argentina. And there you see just another cool textured illustration by Pamelo Chirone. Very cool. All the excitement that you see in Pamelo Chirone's work. Here is Neho. Neho out, and this is great, out of Argentina as well. Met Neho in Buenos Aires at our recording there. So cool illustration and surfing or rollerblading on the records there. And cool work, edition of 31 for 2 Tezos, 1 sold so far to Lucas Ox. Super cool illustration. Matto Jennings, and I wish I had the illustration right here. I almost do, but I don't have time. But I showed it before, but we'll see more from Neho. Matto Jennings, cool illustration here too, just kind of stylized cowboy and interesting portrayal of the gun. Here is Mythson number 40. And here is The Myth in Santiago, the artist formerly known as Santiago, now called Times. And so a very unusual Mythson, kind of reminiscent of Human Kernel series there. And I love the clouds. I wonder if maybe the myth put in the clouds there. And great textures in the background, by the way. Kind of a subtle piece, actually. The textures in the face are quite interesting too, as well as in the jacket. Very interesting. Super interesting. Worth a close inspection here. Edition of 1 and now at 100 Tezos. So doing well. Continuing on, mech.txt, who of course I follow, one of each temper. Some beautiful works here of nature. Different seasons, I guess. The flower and maybe some rain here, and it looks like fall and winter. So maybe spring, summer, and fall and winter. Gorgeous. Here's another one. A good day, a day full of good labor on the road back home. This was quite beautiful too. Love the framing actually in here. And cool, kind of minimal, not so minimal, but kind of minimal landscape, pixelated. Gorgeous work here by Muji. A different Game Boy that is broken. And so very nice Game Boy that's broken. Great dithering and love the concept. And even the USB, or maybe for the electricity, the cord, electrical cord, highlighted there, and the joystick. So interesting piece. I believe deluxe paint. Here is Tom Bombattle, finally. Crazy Atomic Welder. So seeing some new Tom Bombattle, which I'm thrilled to see. This is on Object, great pixel artist, kind of sci-fi retro pixel art. And this is an edition of 20, and there it is, 18 Tezos each, 4 gone so far. And continuing on, Our Milk. Good night, don't cut down the Christmas tree, give cacti. So we do have a wild background here, and a work by Our Milk here of a cactus. Very interesting. Look at that background. Super interesting artist. Here's Chaz, Arcadia. So playing with a kind of, looks like Pong, or actually not Pong. This is a different game that I recognize from the 80s. Maybe Arcan is the game. Huge pixels here. Huge dithering, which is kind of interesting in itself, actually. Edition of 15 for $250 each, and they're almost all gone. It's nice work there. Rosetio with a couple, actually a few. I got a couple here. This is Broccoli on 8 Badoo. Edition of 1, selling for 45 Tezos. Nice work. And here is Spike, which is an edition of 99, and already 7 gone, or 6 gone. So cool work there. Almost looks like the COVID protein, but not sure. Here's plants. Going back to the Plant Ski series. So a new plant, I believe, and you see the frame. It is a new plant. Gorgeous frame here. Wonder if that's manual. I bet it is. Edition of 16 for 8 Tezos, and they are moving. So nice work there from Plants, also known as Cap'n. Here is Pixel Fool and Nicholas Sassoon, posted by Alexandra Art, Magdorm. So cool pixelation here. Cool combo. You get the big pixels and the small pixels that are uncolored in the background. Nice piece, animated abstract. Here's Nicholas Sassoon on his own. Peak. So here, beautiful kind of cycling landscape here, cycling colors moving through this. Gorgeous work there. And here's the detail. Wow. So the stuff you don't capture when things get compressed on X. Lucas Ox. Here is a cool work here. Gaming topic inspired me to create an interplanetary space cowboy based on retro shooters like iRobot. So this is on Tezos, one of one edition, 50 Tezos Reserve. So cool work here. And great color, and kind of looks like a little bit analog video glitch-esque. Mika Oladev, artifact. And indeed, there are artifacts here as this figure runs through a kind of interesting rocky landscape. Edition of 9 for 15 Tezos, and almost all gone. Having fun picking up 2. Yuri J there too. Here is and Mason the Third, October 22nd, 6 p.m. The first from Phantasmagoria. So always interesting. Mason the Third has some wonderful pieces. One of my favorite one-of-ones I picked up from Mason the Third. Great artist, and here doing another one of these interesting kind of sci-fi landscapes, Phantasmagoria. And where will that be? Not sure. Maybe has been pointing out works on Zora, so maybe it's Zora. Here's Limbo, doing a very interesting mixing of drawing, and then you have almost pixelation, but then, or almost even like the 4 color CMYK color thing, but just in black. But then video seems to be using, and just a blinking image, and you almost see like 01, like Kurt Hustle collective style. And this is for Limbo's Telegram channel. So you get a special subscriber badge. So Limbo's TV network, hilarious. Pretty cool. Here is Pinball Guy with some ASCII, with Retro Manny. So Mission 9, and so interesting combo here. And again, playing with the old portable game console and playing a video game here. Interesting loop, ASCII, CC, and P. Interesting. Gino. Bitter. Interesting animated abstract here, as you see. Interesting, I think pretty short loop, edition of 1, and that is 25 Tezos, listed at 25 Tezos. Here's Cal Flemmer, Never Settle, edition of 10. And this is HAR92 by HAR92, but then turned into 1,000. I love the texture. Maybe it's in the making things larger that you get these great textures. Wonderful glitch here of someone running, composed and animated in Aspirate. So maybe created in Aspirate. This isn't a sample. Interestingly, rescanned from a Zenith CRT, color corrected and reanimated in Photoshop. Quite the process there. Very rich. Ex-Mortal with a gorgeous landscape, perfect day under a detuned sky. Great title, too. I think this sold out pretty fast, if I'm not mistaken. Wonderful, wonderful sky here. Edition of 13 for 16 Tezos each. And here's Jada with analog video glitch. In the morning, the air was very thick. Another landscape work. These could hang in the same room, I think, and another super richly textured work. Love those vertical lines there. Here's Bosque Gracias with a new film negative here. And interestingly, I think of a lake. This lake was created on a slide that had a lake on it, but didn't look like one I could swim in. And then interesting, it looks like the physical slide has been kind of corroded somehow, perhaps. Edition of 1, or it's layering, not sure. 36 Tezos at auction, and that has been bid on. Now 36 Tezos, you can still get it. First Syndrome. This was posted in an open call, so I assume this is a work by First Syndrome. Loved the concept here of like office cubicles done with what looks like AI, maybe stable diffusion textures, if I had to guess. Here's Scamra. Speaking of stable diffusion, textual inversion, if I remember that correctly. And here it looks like an artist. Great textures again here. And a pixelation and textures. Here's another super, almost JPEGization a little bit, fuzzed out a little bit. Very interesting. Almost looks like a user interface here. Super interesting. And here is Toucan. Purple Haze all in my brain. Again, I think this is AI. So pretty interesting, fuzzed out experimental AI. Here is Tukes, edition of 1. This is on Super Rare. And so another interesting piece, Flower, AI Flower, I assume by Tukes. Here is Full Metal Droid, I wasn't sure if this is No Hygiene or not. Kind of has that vibe, but it could be a different artist. I'm not sure if it's an alias or an artist doing kind of in the same kind of category, we might say, doing very experimental and these kind of weird figures, let's call them. Maybe a similar process. Droid Automation 5G. And here is No Hygiene with totally wild Cuckoo 13. And indeed, this looks totally cuckoo. Meat, people, just for wildness. No Hygiene winning the Weird Prize. Bodo Project. So this is a community that is making AI here. So interesting, this was the result. I thought this one was kind of interesting. In case history spilled secrets. Usually these go for tens of thousands of dollars. Joao Salazar, Internal Landscape First Contact, available on Foundation. So creating a GIF animation out of plasticine, and just going to scroll through a little quicker here. So beautiful work there by Joao. And also into the physicals we go. Bobby Chi Matiha, different kind of piece, isn't it, with the horse on top? Very whimsical, 2024, so new work there. Here's my friend Charlie Stein, Thymospheria. So I think this one's a little bit more up close, if I'm not mistaken. This one looks a little different. Interesting subject. Kind of interesting combination of iconography. This was interesting too. Lazy Bones by Color Charlie. Looks like using airbrush and maybe just a flat background. Not sure if that, I think it's physical, but not positive. I assume that's physical. Here's Moto Hero 583 or Moto 583. Cars that are people, just a wild artist as we saw the other day. And that is your show, my friends. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I hope you enjoyed the show. Had to run through it there. Until next time, hope you have a wonderful creative weekend and take care.